Okay, so as not to delay any further, we might get started. My name is Laura Egan O'Brien. I'm the Marketing Manager for the College of Engineering and Architecture here in UCD, and I'm going to be your host for the session today. This is our fourth session we've had today for our Talk Graduate Virtual Events series this week. And this one is all about programs within our School of Architecture, Planning and Environmental Policy. You are going to get a chance to hear from our head of school, Owen O'Neill, give a bit of an overview of the programs and the school itself, and then we'll launch into a bit of more of a student experience focus where we'll have students from our Masters of Regional Urban Planning, Evan, we'll have a student from our Master of Architecture, Sinead, and then finally we'll have a student from our Masters in Architecture, Urbanism and Climate Action, Stalin. He's going to talk about his experience also, and particularly as an international student. And then we'll have a bit of a Q&A at the end. So any questions that you do have, you'll get a chance to answer them later on in the session. So just some housekeeping before we get started. If you do have questions, the Q&A button is located in the control panel at the bottom of your screen. Type your questions in there as they come to you, and we'll make time, as I said, at the end of the session today. Also, just to let you know, the session is being recorded. So if for any reason you need to leave early, you miss anything, or you do know of other people who would be interested in the content today but couldn't attend, you can share it with them. We will be popping the link of that recording up on our college YouTube channel early next week. And my colleague Katie O'Neill, who is also joining us today, has popped the link in the chat there for you as well. And then last but not least, just to say from me, you would have got an email with the link for today's webinar. And within that email, you would have also got a link to our college landing page for this event. That page is quite useful if you hadn't had a chance to look at it yet. It has lots of useful information that you can check out in your own time. Things like our brochures are listed there for program information, the UCD Virtual Campus Tour if you haven't had a chance to visit the UCD campus before, alumni showcase and academic research impact case studies, that kind of thing. Lots of good information about our programs and our schools and our academics that you can check out. And again, my colleague Katie has popped a link in the chat there also. So that's really all for me. We're going to get into the regular scheduled programming, as they say. So first up is our head of school, Owen O'Neill, as I said, to give an overview of the school itself.
Thanks very much, Laura. So I have some slides to show everyone, so you're all very welcome to this webinar. Just an overview of a little bit of an overview of the school, and then about some of our individual programs. So I think there's about 6 people on here, so you're all very welcome. So my name is Owen O'Neill. I'm Associate Professor of Environmental Policy and Head of the School of Architecture, Planning and Environmental Policy, which is why you're all here today. So 4 subjects in the school: architecture, environmental policy, landscape architecture, and regional urban planning. It's a fairly unique composition of subjects in the Irish context. 140 staff, 600 students in the UCD campus. We actually have another about 450 on our campus in China as well. Of those staff, about 60 are faculty. So it's a large school with a large number of faculty in it as well. In terms of the various portfolio of graduate degree programs we have on offer: MRUP, MSc Urban Design and Planning, MSc Planning Development and Urban Design, MSc Environmental Policy, MSc Architecture, Urbanism and Climate Action, and then the Master of Architecture MArch program as well. We've about 100 master students registered across that portfolio of programs. In terms of the accreditation, we have a number of accrediting bodies associated with the school: the RIAI, the RIBA, the British Institute, and NAB, the American Accreditation or Accrediting Board. So those 3 bodies accredit our MArch program. Irish Planning Institute and Royal Town Planning Institute, they accredit our MRUP programs, and the RTPI also accredit our MSc Environmental Policy program. And the Landscape Institute, it's also associated with the school, but not concerning any programs that we're talking about today. In terms of our profile of the staff and the nature of the activities that occurs in the school, it's highly recognized in terms of esteem and impact. So the academics working in the school are publishing in the leading journals, are editors of leading journals, hold prestigious grants, so major European grants, Horizon Europe grants, European Research Council grants, and also then the major SFI and Irish Research Council funding grants. Also award-winning research and publications, and then external examiners at top universities. So all the staff are really well recognized within their fields. slide has stopped. No. In terms of the faculty, particularly in landscape architecture and architecture, a lot of those are internationally recognized and award-winning designs. So there's a lot of design faculty. In fact, we have about 60 design practitioners across faculty and design fellows within architecture alone. They're all hugely active within practice. So they're all working in practices as well as associated with the school. Then in terms of the other full-time academics, a lot of them are also involved in various appointments to state boards, experts to government committees, and then the research is cited in top policy documents as well. So this is just a collage of some of the research projects that different people are associated with. And then on the below, Pritzker Architecture Prize, and then an O'Donnell and Toomey building, they're faculty who have been associated with the school and are internationally recognized for their award-winning designs. In terms of the location, all our programs are delivered from UCD Richview. So planning and environmental policy master students are actually located in that building there, that building. Dedicated studio facilities, small group teaching rooms, lecture rooms, computer facilities. Then the architecture program is located in another building with much large studio space. So it's very significant studio spaces. Each year of the program gets its own individual studio. And we have a dedicated library for the built environment that's located in Richview. And then Earl's Cafe is a cafe dedicated within the architecture building located in the Richview campus. And then there's a research hub, which is quite a dynamic research space where the largest number of our very research active, our most research active staff are located, and they'd be involved in very significant European research consortia are located there. In terms of some of the significant challenges that our programs address, so climate change, biodiversity loss, urbanization and housing, and then I suppose the transition to low carbon energy and design, they're the major significant issues globally, and they're all addressed throughout our programs to varying degrees. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. The first program I'm going to talk a little bit about is the MSc Urban Design and Planning. This focuses on the role of urban design in the context of urban planning, so urban design, conservation, nature-based solutions. It appeals to graduates from closely related disciplinary backgrounds wishing to specialize in urban design. This can include architects. And the program has its own dedicated urban design studios that are located in Richview. Typically, this would have a good international profile in terms of the student intake each year. When I say international, probably I should say global. Master's in Regional Urban Planning, it's focused on creating places that combine environmental quality with a vibrant economy, quality of life, distributive justice, a 2-year professional planning degree, combination of theoretical modules covering legal, administrative, governance frameworks, practical studio-based and independent research. So again, this is a studio-oriented program. About 25% of it is studio-oriented, but then also a significant research component as well. And it offers an intensive learning experience which is policy relevant and practice related as well. The urban design program, I should say, obviously very significantly studio-oriented in its nature and design. MSc Environmental Policy, a more lecture-oriented program, equips students with essential knowledge about environmental sustainability, policy, governance frameworks for environmental action. Modules, environmental economics, environment and development, EU environmental policy, and then there are other modules focused on applications and solutions. So one of those modules, for example, is tools for sustainable development. And this is what I would, rather than studio, it's probably more a project-oriented module. So it is located within a studio, but it's more a collective student project working as a group to identify policy solutions to an environmental challenge. Usually it's selected each year. It tends to be a different challenge depending on contemporary issues at that time. And the summer internship is also a very popular module. Most students take up that option now in environmental policy. Then our newest program is the MSc Architecture, Urbanism and Climate Action. This program equips graduates with specialist skills to respond to the challenge of planning, designing and actioning a sustainable built environment. Core modules specifically designed to enhance knowledge of sustainable development goals, climate science and policy, as well as skills for sustainable building and urban design. So this is a very interesting combination of modules within it. So it generally generates an interesting class combination in terms of skill set, quite often coming from architecture and urban design kind of background, but also having a policy orientation as well. The class in this is typically very, very international. I think every student was international in the class in the last year, with a total global spread. There's also a wide range of option modules within the program, and then placement, industry collaboration, or individual research options close out the final period of the 12-month program. So it's a very popular program, a growing program, and it's also the newest one, but it has been running and operating very successfully for a number of years now. And then the final program I'm going to talk about today, the MArch program, a Master of Architecture. It's a 2-year program equipping students to deal with complex design problems in a challenging context. It fulfills the requirements for the second part of professional education in architecture, so REBA and RAAI Part 2 exempt. So it embraces small group teaching from faculty, which includes many leading figures in architecture practice, as well as internationally recognized researchers, and equips graduates to work in the field of architecture anywhere across the world in architectural practice and in other forms of creative practice, as well as in the areas of policy, consultancy, and academia. And it's the only program triple accredited in Ireland. So it's a very attractive program. It gives graduates great mobility, professional mobility upon completion. In terms of the job market, from graduates across all our programs at present, there are very strong opportunities. So the economy is very strong at the moment, so that means there are opportunities for all students, whether that is public or private sector, small scale, large scale, multidisciplinary companies, and then climate and sustainability area with policy relevant training more generally. For example, we had a guest speaker coincidentally on our environmental policy program from the Houses of the Oireachtas, which is the Irish Parliament, from its particular research service, who was hugely complimentary and appealing for people coming out of the MSc Environmental Policy to think about that as a potential destination for employment in the future. So there's a very strong opportunities across all programs that is very internationally mobile, given the strong reputation of the school. It's in the top 150 in the QS ranking in its area. So in terms of the footprint of our graduates, again, the spread is global. So we have students, our graduates and alumni of our programs located all around the world. So it's a testament to the success and the quality of the program and the graduates that we attract to the program as well. So that's all I'm going to say for now. I'm going to hand back to Laura.
Great, thanks so much, Owen. Great overview of the programs themselves. So now we have a bit more on the student experience. So first up, as I mentioned at the start, is Evan. So he's a current student in our Masters of Regional Urban Planning program. Evan, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for having me, Laura. I suppose I'll start off, I suppose, by kind of describing why I chose the Masters. One of the big factors was that it was kind of a natural progression through from my undergrad degree in city planning and environmental policy in order to be fully qualified. And that was compiled by me not being ready to leave college. And also that kind of a lot of the modules within the Masters itself are very career oriented, so that I'm actually learning a lot of the essential skills that I'll need kind of throughout my professional career. In terms of the academics that I'm kind of taught by, as Owen alluded to earlier, they're all top level, and you're taught by some of the leading experts in their relevant fields. They're also extremely friendly, accommodating and approachable. They respond really promptly to kind of emails, and they always seek to accommodate students as best they can and in whatever way they can. A few things that I kind of noted down as kind of like added benefits for choosing the Masters. The first thing is obviously being fully qualified. So once I complete my Masters, I'll be accredited by the IPI and the RTPI. And then I'll also be fully proficient in a lot of the practical skills and software skills. For example, I've been taught how to use kind of Illustrator. I've been taught how to use kind of most Adobe packages, SketchUp, computer-aided design CAD, reading architectural drawings, various different things like that. A lot of practical skills that employers look very favorably upon. And then also there's lots of connections. So a lot of kind of companies, particularly in Ireland, would kind of either guest lecture or exhibit at some point throughout the 2-year degree, which creates a direct kind of correlation between the student and potential future employers. A few of the projects that I've really enjoyed kind of doing throughout my master's was a local studio that I completed last semester. It was based on Carrick and Shannon in County Leitrim, and it was in collaboration with Leitrim County Council. In that studio, we kind of prepared a local area plan following on from our analysis of the area. Similarly, another project that I've enjoyed this semester has been my urban design studio, which has been oriented around Emmett Road on kind of like the south inner city of Dublin. That's been kind of a design oriented solution sort of studio. So trying to figure out how we can kind of increase densities, create infill sites, various different things like that. I found that very interesting, and it's very interactive and studio based. So you're working in kind of small groups. And then another one that I enjoyed was kind of a leadership project and development management sort of module. Again, it taught you a lot of the basic skills that you need within the profession, and also kind of taught you how to be a project lead and kind of all the different elements of planning applications and various different things that I would need going forward. The final project for that was kind of investigating UCD and how it has developed in depth, which I found really kind of interesting. And then I suppose to kind of conclude, what is next for me, I suppose, what's my future career looking like? At the minute, I'm kind of focused on completing my thesis throughout the summer while working part-time in the planning consultancy in the private sector. And then I hope to kind of sign a graduate contract at the place that I'm presently employed, and then kind of just progress from there and see, where it takes me. As Owen mentioned earlier, career prospects are at an all-time high for the profession, and it's a very sought after profession and accreditation as well. So you'll have no issues finding jobs. But yeah, that concludes me.
Great. Thanks so much, Evan. And I'm sure attendees will be delighted to hear that the job market is so good and that you're so hopeful for it, which is great. So next speaker we have is Sinead, who is a current student in our MArch, our Masters of Architecture program. Sinead, over to you.
Hi. So the Masters program is 2 years long. You've 4th year and 5th year. And I suppose the nice part about that is that there's a little less pressure in 4th year. You have a seminar module, which is like writing a mini dissertation, I suppose. And then 5th year, the 2nd year, is the year that it counts towards your GPA. So then the course ends in June. It doesn't run over the summer. It's only 9 months long. And so then that large chunk of the written work, the dissertation, is done in November and December before Christmas. And you have that other version in 4th year that doesn't count towards your GPA to work towards that. So it's quite handy in a way. You have 4th year to get used to how everything is done before you actually do the kind of official version in the 2nd year of it. I suppose one reason why I chose to do the Masters is again for career progression. It's kind of a key part of working your way towards becoming a fully qualified architect, doing the professional exams. But definitely one thing that I really liked about it in UCD was the fact that you're qualified to work in the US and the UK and all throughout Europe. The triple accreditation is a really great thing to have for moving abroad to work, which is definitely something that I liked the look of. And a lot of the teaching staff in UCD are great as well. The tutors, many of them are working on the Venice Biennale this year. We're selected, a small group from each country is chosen to produce something for that, and a lot of them are working on that. And the Richview Library as well, being a great resource to have on site. And one of the projects I suppose I'm doing this year is based on Dublin Port, and we're working with NCAD, the Masters of Material Culture, investigating. We're doing lectures together and working with them on the port, which is kind of interesting. There's a lot of collaboration throughout different studios throughout the years as well. And giving sites, interesting sites throughout Dublin or throughout Ireland to focus on the studio project to do. And that's one thing. The architecture masters in UCD is quite academic as well, which is good. You learn a lot of the practicalities of architecture in the working world, but I think it's good that the focus when you're in university is on the academics and more of that side of the career than the everyday practicalities of working in an office. And the studio space is great as well. Everyone gets their own desk. There's the building lab for making models, and that's a woodworking lab, as well as you can make plaster casts in there as well. And yeah, like I said, the library as well. So the resources are good, and the fact that it's all contained in the small square, the Richview campus within UCD it has a nice quality to it as well. That campus. And yeah, I suppose the next move for me after this is to work as a graduate architect, and then work on doing the professional exams, which can also be done through UCD.
Great. Thanks so much, Sinead. Sounds like there's really great facilities and resources for students, particularly on the Masters of Architecture, which is great. So the next person and the final speaker we have today is Stalin, who is an international student, and he's currently studying our Masters in Architecture, Urbanism and Climate Action. So it's a newer program that we have, but it seems quite popular. So Stalin, over to you.
Yeah, so hi. So let me start off telling about my the reason why I chose the masters. I already I'm an architect, trained qualified architect from India, and I have also done a master's. This is my second master's that I'm taking, and the reason why I took was that I wanted to deepen my knowledge for research, and I also have been teaching in India for the last 5 years. So the reason why I wanted to take the masters was that, as I said, that I wanted to deepen my quest for inquiry, and that is something that I really found over here. And there have been the thing that I really like about the whole program is the way the diverse nature of the program. There are modules which are of which speak about different aspects or at a different scale and a different nature of intervention. So there are interesting modules where we are talking about COP27, like last year what had happened. So we were dealing about something like that. We were also talking about, we were having a lot of, rather than calling it a module, I would call we're having discussions about COP27. And then we also had a very interesting discussion about a module about life cycle and assessment, which was also a very, very interesting module. Then we have something like personally, me being an architect, there was a module which spoke about retrofit and the needs of retrofit, and we actually did through practical understanding of retrofitting existing buildings. So that was a great module personally for me. And then we have nature-based solutions, where we are addressing at a very urban level about how to come up with nature-based solutions. So I think that these were certain modules that were really, really interesting. And then in terms of software, there are provisions and facilities of learning all types of softwares here. There are modules which teach you something like Grasshopper, Rhino, and then we have softwares for all research tools that have been taught. So personally for me, it was a journey where I wanted to deepen my knowledge for research, and getting me a platform to to be an independent researcher. So I think that has been this university is like a perfect background for that. And one more thing, what as an international student, what I really like about is that everything is so approachable. Like everyone, all the faculties over here are so approachable, and like they're always there to willing to have a discussion with you and anything. So it just like I don't even feel like I'm missing home. I feel it feels very much like home here. And yeah, and I think the last thing, I think what in terms of what is going to be my next move in my career, I think I would want to pursue PhD, and because and that is strongly because of the nature of the way how we have been taught here, how we have been promoted to do research, and I think that is something that has been really helpful for me, and that's very encouraging for me. So I think with that, I would like to conclude. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Stalin. That's really interesting. And I'm sure from an international perspective, it's great to hear that you've kind of settled in, you're having a good time. So I'm going to ask all our speakers to actually turn on their cameras and their sound, and we might do a bit of a Q&A. So I'm just going to put it in gallery mode so everyone can see everyone. Just if you have any questions, I know some people have started typing them in. If you have any questions, there is a Q&A button, as I said, located at the control panel at the bottom of your screen. Type your questions in there. We'll get through as many as we can. And I understand my colleague Katie also has received some private messages, so we'll get through as many of those that we have as well. So to kick things off, I think Katie had one. So the MSc in Architecture, Urbanism, Climate Action, what roles and companies and what companies do you see graduates progressing to? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So there, as I said, it's at a diverse scale, right? So there are you can get into policies, and there are people who are working with the government. There are people who are into research, and then there are people who are working with architectural practices. Like we have an internship module, which is really interesting, and people have the liberty to do thesis of their own, and at the same time they also have they get a chance to intern with some of the top leading architectural firms, environmental firms like Arup and Hawkins Brown, Cody Architects. So there are like a diverse background pool of opportunities which is there, which is being offered from this course. Yeah.
That's brilliant. And then there was another question just around the architecture, urbanism, climate action. They're specifically asking, they're coming from an environmental sciences background. So I don't know if Owen, you wanted to speak to the kind of types of students that you're seeing within that course, and then maybe Stalin, what the kind of cohort of students within your year group is.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty open. I suppose it's best to check in with the program to make sure that you see it as a fit for yourself and that you're a fit for it. But it is a pretty open program in terms of background. You're not required to be an architect to do the program, but there is a design dimension to it that you'd have to upskill a little bit. It's not beyond the capacity of anybody from a diverse range of backgrounds to get onto the program though. And it is very wide ranging in the applications, as Stalin mentioned. So there's a huge range of option modules that would suit people from a wide range of disciplinary backgrounds. A lot of the applicants tend to have a reasonably technical background and are looking for that policy or climate action exposure. So that's the nature of the mix of students on it.
Great. And Stalin, do you find that there's a good mix within your cohort of students?
Yes. I think it's very diverse, and there's a good mix of people from different backgrounds, from different nationalities. Like all of us are international students. And one thing, what I really the interesting thing is that it means that environmental science students or people with environmental science background are very much eligible for this course, because we have students who have economics background, and the nature of the course is that it's so open, so flexible, that it will allow you to pick up things or see from your own strengths and like, how can you customize a course, or like, customize a learning experience for yourself. So I think that is what the main intention of the course is, and I think that's what makes it so beautiful.
That's brilliant. Sam, we might just stick with you. Just there was a question specifically as you're an international student. How did you find transitioning to live in Ireland, and did you find it was easy to settle in to UCD and the life that the campus has to offer?
Oh yes, like it was just a great experience. Like, I like everyone's so friendly over here. Like, before moving, yes, I did have my anxieties, but I think once I just the minute I landed here, I think everything was so clear, like in terms of like, helping me through the processes, not just department, but the whole university itself. The process was so smooth. So I think, yeah, it's like in 1 month's time I was like really well settled, and like, and for anything you just have all your professors, your mentors, and people who are there to just go approach them and have a conversation with them, and there is a solution always available. So I'm like absolutely fine. Like, it's a very nice
That's great to
experience.
hear, and I'm sure a comfort for any international students potentially listening in, that you've had a good experience. This person didn't specify what particular course they were interested in. Sean, if you're there, if you want to pop the actual course you're interested in, but they were asking about modules and how they are chosen and how many are assigned to people. I don't know if one of our students or owner or wanted to comment on how modules are assigned or how students choose modules, if there's a lot of options within the courses.
Well, I suppose it depends on the specific program. So all programs have core modules which you have to do.
Sorry, just Sean popped in. Urban planning is what he's interested in.
Okay. So I can't remember the specific requirements at this moment for that program, but because sometimes it changes a little bit. But typically there are core modules that you have to do, and then there may be some option or elective modules which you choose which one suits best your interest. It may depend on module capacities whether you get your preferred choice or not. But the MRUP at the moment, I think, like, it's if they're dedicated modules, you typically get your preferences anyway.
Yeah, so typically there would be options and choices available, but I think I might ask my colleague Katie, and I think she's just done it there, just to pop a link to the module specifically for that course as well in the chat there if you want to check it out, Sean.
But core modules, they're ones you have to do. Then there's option modules in most programs that gives you some flexibility and choice. But not every program has those. I think EP, all the modules are pretty much core, but it depends on the specific program.
Okay, for anyone who's interested specifically in the modules that the core ones and option modules, on our graduate studies website, each of the programs would have a specific page related to the modules that are part of that particular program. So you should check that out. There was another question around what supports from the university, from UCD, in regards to career opportunities. So I don't know if Evan or Sinead wants you to hop in there on how you found the career supports and the career guidance that you've received within the degrees that you're doing.
Yeah, sure. I suppose I can speak from kind of my personal perspective anyway. As I kind of mentioned in my little piece, you'd have a lot of kind of employers actually lecturing you within all of the master's courses, which is a great way of kind of getting to know perhaps potential future employers and creating that connection. But UCD also has a careers office as well, who host a variety of kind of employment seminars right throughout the year. Again, trying to create those links between students and employers, I suppose. So from my perspective anyway, I feel that I'm very well supported in trying to get, careers going out into the future.
Brilliant. And Sinead, yourself?
Yeah, it's quite similar in architecture as well. A lot of the employers, usually the tutors, are all practicing architects as well. So it's a good way to meet them just through studying throughout the year. And we had in the second year of the master's, in the first semester of that, there's a module that's all focused on careers, and part of that was kind of about drawing up CVs, and there was a networking event of previous alumni that came in. And then within the school as well, there's after graduation, usually there's job postings circulated amongst staff and students as well. So it's a good network to be part of. for things like that, for things that their jobs mightn't necessarily need to be advertised and Indeed and things.
Great. Yeah, no, the career development team in UCD is really great support for students. They do career fairs on campus. They do an online portal for job applications. So they kind of support anyone who's doing a course within UCD. But then obviously the school itself would have a lot of supports available to students on an individual and course specific basis. There's just someone who is an architect. They have a master's in architecture. They're from India and they were looking to join maybe the urban design and planning program. I don't know, Owen, if you wanted to mention if that's a suitable program for their kind of profile and their background.
Yeah, well, there's two programs, the MSc Urban Design and Planning and MSc Planning, Development and Design. The MSc Planning and Development and Design is dedicated to or focused on students who are eligible to be registered architects. So it's more focused on students who have an architectural registration or are eligible to take out a registration. So it's pretty much the same program as the urban design program, except it's exclusively only those who have done architecture and qualified are eligible to undertake it. So that might be a good fit potentially. Otherwise, the urban design and planning program is pretty much the same content. It's obviously a very suitable program. A lot of the students have architecture backgrounds as well, and certainly are focused on the design elements in the public realm. So I think it's a good choice for anyone who has an architecture background and wants to move beyond, I suppose, the individual building to more the public realm and the setting, but also to bring in a wider planning context into design.
Great. I hope that clarifies that for that attendee. You mentioned in your presentation, Owen, about a lot of the programs are accredited or professionally kind of geared qualifications that the students are getting. This student is particularly a prospective student for the MArch. They're from the US and they were just kind of wondering about the triple accreditation and what that actually looks like for a student once they graduate and how that normally works.
Well, I suppose it gives them, it's accredited by the RIAI, which is the Irish, and Irish also now means EU. REBA, which is the British, which is not EU, but so it's a unique program in that you'll have the American status, the Irish status, which gives you EU mobility and eligibility, and then a UK eligibility that you can't get anywhere else in the rest of Europe. Ireland is sort of a unique setting because we have what's called a common travel area. So there's a unique reciprocal arrangement between the RIAI and REBA. So there's a unique combination of the three accrediting bodies that you can't get anywhere else. So you have that mobility across the European Union, but also the UK, and then return to the US as well. So I hope that gives a little bit of insight. It is complicated. You probably have to do a bit of reading about it, but that's pretty much it's a unique offering, and it gives great mobility.
Great. And then with regards to the environmental policy program, I think one of our attendees just wanting to know which companies and organizations do you know that accept students on internship placements, or is it possible to conduct maybe a research thesis or minor thesis instead of the internship?
I can answer that one, Kitty.
Great, thanks, Luke.
Hi, everyone. I teach on the environmental policy course. So just the first part of the question, Kitty?
Yeah, it was just around the companies and organizations that might accept students for the internship piece.
Yeah, so the internship's becoming more and more popular on the environmental policy or the environmental policy masters. So we're seeing like NGOs accepting students on board. Also, some local consultancies and some major consultancies are accepting people. This is leading to jobs. And also, for example, as Friends of the Earth, people got jobs, Friends of the Earth. On the other aspect, Owen mentioned the House of Oireachtas earlier. There's been interest from them. That's the Irish Parliament, having people come in as researchers, internship researchers. So it's becoming more popular, and it's certainly being taken up a lot more by the students on the course. That sort of follows on to the second question, which was...
Yeah, would a student conduct a thesis instead of doing the summer internship?
Yeah, so the students have a choice. They can choose the internship, but if they prefer to do, if they have a particular interest, they can focus on, carrying out a thesis over the summer, and they'll get support from the university staff on that case.
Great, and then
it's up to the student.
Great, that's perfect. And then sticking with the environmental policy, Luke, if you don't mind, is there a good mix of national and international students within that particular program?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we've got students there from For myself, I've supervised students from China, India, United States, and also locally from Ireland. Somebody else asked me a question on I was trying to answer questions on the Q&A typey bit, but they kept disappearing. So I'll just answer the question. I'm not sure it was an anonymous question, but they asked, do we cover urban environmental policy issues and rural? The question is yes, we cover both. So for example, in the urban, we look at transport solutions, urban transport solutions. We'll also look at things such as the bioeconomy and circular bioeconomy. So let's focus more on rural environmental issues. So I hope that answers the questions. And sorry if the answer just disappeared.
That's perfect. Thanks, Luke. Evan, there's a question for you here, obviously with in the context of your specific master's that you're doing. What kind of jobs or roles within companies would you be looking at based on having done this master's?
I mean, like it kind of, I suppose to kick things off, it covers just about any job kind of within the planning profession. You're taught all different aspects of kind of like the planning profession. So you're well equipped going out into the work field to take on just about any role assigned to you within companies or organizations. I mean, personally speaking, from kind of what I've been doing for the past year and a half, the company that I've been working with, I've kind of been primarily focusing on planning applications, kind of doing planning reports, organizing applications, organizing teams, etc., and putting planning applications into, local authorities and on board and all as well. And that's been kind of the side that I've been focusing on. But you can also focus on different sides such as environmental impact assessments and all that sort of thing as well. So it doesn't really confine you too much, but the master's does have you well equipped for the profession itself. It gives you access to anything.
Great, so quite broad, quite a lot of opportunities there. And then I might just stick with you, Evan, as well. Someone was asking around they've accepted an offer for the MRUP, which is great, congratulations. They want to know if there's any ways to learn GIS software, its applications within the course.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, congratulations for accepting the offer. And then secondly, GIS is actually one of your option modules. I'm doing the accelerated program, just slightly different, but I believe the GIS option module is kind of your final semester, final year. I'm not too sure about that. One of the other panelists might be better able to answer that. But you're also kind of taught it within kind of local studio modules, and studio modules you're taught different aspects of kind of SketchUp and different softwares as well within studio modules. So you're well equipped.
Perfect. And Luke, you wanted to jump in there?
I'll just follow on from, as Evan said, so GIS is available to all UCD students. At ArcGIS, the most up-to-date ArcGIS is available to download for all GIS students. And UCD also has a great GIS library facility. So there's, as well as the teaching you'll get in class, there's also self-teaching modules available via GIS library services. It's a great facility I always point out to my students.
Perfect. Katie, I might ask you this one just because I suppose it's cross-board for international students. Someone who's interested in the career opportunities, obviously a master's with us might afford them. What does that look like for international students? Are they able to, find jobs when they're finished logistically?
Yeah. So I think for non-EU students, it's important to note that if you complete a level 9, which is a master's, you're entitled to what's commonly referred to as the 2-year stay-back visa. And an awful lot of our graduates actually avail of this. And what it allows them to do is to seek career opportunities within Ireland. Some of them want to stay in Ireland, some of them want to return home, but it's just great that you have that option from a visa perspective. We also have a careers centre. We have a dedicated professional, Nicola Fortune, who supports the students from this school as well. So there's a huge wraparound service as well for our students in terms of we can do mock interviews with you. You can do CV 360, where we'll look at your CV for you, your cover letter, and support you in how you actually apply for jobs so that you can be as successful as possible.
Brilliant. And then Katie, I might just stick with you real quick. Just someone was asking around, does the university provide dormitories or on-campus accommodation for international students?
There is on-campus accommodation. It is not guaranteed. And what I always say to students is, as soon as you have your offer, and if you're keen to stay on campus, you can avail of, there's an early deposit scheme. So I think that opens up usually around December. So I would suggest that you look earlier rather than later if you want to stay on campus. If you don't want to stay on campus, there is also a website, I think it's called UCD Accommodation Pad. I'll pop it up in the chat as well. And that's where we have, you know, opportunities around homestay, sharing, and so on and so forth. But as I say, look, always earlier is much better than leaving it to the last minute. We are a capital city where accommodation is in high demand. So the sooner you can get yourself organised, the more you can focus then on your studies.
Great, thank you, Katie. And Stalin, I don't know if you wanted to comment as an international student, any tips for people looking for accommodation?
I think Katie mentioned it really well in terms of like there are websites as she mentioned that either you have to take your actions really fast. As soon as you get your offer letter, you go for it, or there are websites that will, like, you know, like UCD Accommodation Pad has been really helpful for me. So I think, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And then there's a question if someone wanted to jump in here that they're living in Ireland, they're an international potential student, currently working as a road and cycleway designer, and they're just wondering maybe potentially what masters might be a good fit for them, or on the surface level a good fit for them anyway.
I suppose it depends really what the nature of the career ambitions or type of area they want to get into. Potentially, like planning could be urban planning could be a fit, environmental policy could be a fit, architecture, urbanism, and climate action could be a fit, but it depends on their motivation and what they really want to pursue. So it's probably worth them looking at the descriptors for each of the programs and seeing which one best aligns with their own career aspirations. So obviously there's the planning, you'd be getting more into the future, the design of the future built environment. Environmental policy is more the design of the policy context for how you want to incentivize people and in terms of their behavior, maybe more their behavior, so more about the individual people. And architecture, urbanism, and climate action, sort of a bridge between planning, policy, and architecture. So it's a crossover kind of program, hybrid program across multiple areas. So it depends on their career preferences.
Great. So there is options there, but for them to decide which one, a bit of research and looking at the modules and the program descriptors will be very useful. There was a question here on the MSc Urban Design and Planning about does it offer accreditation?
Yeah, so the MSc, or sorry, which one?
Urban Design and Planning.
Yes, that is it's accredited for students who have done the undergraduate degree. So typically it's not an accredited program unless they do the MSc Development Planning and Design, which is specifically for architects. So the general program isn't specifically accredited. So it depends on your origins, but typically it's not.
Okay. Sinead, I might just ask you this question on the MArch. How is all the software handled for students and the free access such things as Adobe software and Revit, and how have you found that?
Yeah, you get a student license usually. You just need to, for most of the websites, any of the Autodesk like AutoCAD or Revit, Vectorworks, those kind of things, you just upload your student card usually, and you get the license for the year. Same, there's a discount available for SketchUp. There's a student kind of Adobe do a full package of Photoshop, and it's like the full creative package. So you'll get the ones used the most I would say I use the most are Illustrator, and InDesign and Photoshop, and you get Premiere Pro and the other ones. You do have to pay for that. They do a student deal on that, but it also doesn't matter what programs you use to make whatever you're making. The focus, I suppose, in the drawings is more the idea behind the drawings and the research you're doing. So it doesn't matter if the students that would use Vectorworks or CAD or anything for drawings, and that's up to you what you use.
Okay, brilliant. I think we have one more question then. Evan, I think this is for the MRUP, so I might throw this to you. Again, they're looking for does this master's cover modules or give you options to take modules that might give you knowledge on urban flooding and how to control and mitigate those through sound planning?
Sorry, I'm trying to think on the spot here of what modules I've covered.
Sure, you've done a lot.
I wouldn't say that there's necessarily specific modules that are dedicated towards those specific items, but you would discuss a lot of things like that within modules, such as, for example, the kind of studio sessions where you're coming up with kind of creative or innovative solutions. You'd be considering, sustainable urban design and kind of various different things like that. So you'd be covering them within modules rather than having specific modules dedicated towards them, would be kind of my experience on things anyway. But a panelist might be able to provide better insight.
Luke, you wanted to jump in there?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. Thanks, Evan. So I'm talking from the environmental policy perspective. I would, as Owen and Evan both said earlier, I would advise you to look at the policy or the options, module options that are available online. But I know, for example, I teach a module called Case Studies of Environmental Policy, where we look at each week, take a different issue related to environmental policy, and one of them would be climate change. We look at climate change adaptation and mitigation techniques that are employed to control things like flooding and other climate action or climate change issues. So it's really, I would just advise you just to look at the detailed link that I think Katie's put up, the link to the different modules, and see what's on offer. So I know environmental policy we covered, but I can't remember. What's the specific question?
It was for MRUP.
MRUP, okay. So I'm not sure, Owen, if you know, but I know that we cover it in environmental policy, but more of the climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, and that would fall within that umbrella.
Yeah, I don't think there's an explicit module that looks at flooding. Like was mentioned though, studio modules can be focused on issues that include climate impacts like flooding. There are other modules that might cover elements of it, governing nature, sustainable cities. So there's different modules that may cover aspects, but there's no explicit flooding module unless studio covers or is dedicated to addressing a flood issue in a particular year. So hopefully that answers the question.
No, that's fine. So we've come to the end of all the questions. All the open questions have been answered. Just to flag that my colleague Katie did actually put links to the UCD residences and accommodation in the chat as well. If you were interested, grab those links. And she's also putting her email address and my own email address in the chat as well. So if you didn't get a chance to get your questions answered today, or you have something that comes up at a later stage, send us an email. We're more than happy to answer your questions via email and can put you in touch with the relevant people or send you the relevant links if it's something we can answer ourselves. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much to all our speakers and our presenters for giving your time today. Some great insights there, some great student experiences to learn from as well. And thank you to every one of our attendees who joined us as well. As always, it's a pleasure to have you with us at any stage. But that's all. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.